Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Information Warfare Pavilion at West 2024. My name's Joe Gradisher. I'm the Public Affairs Officer for N2N6, and I have the pleasure of playing moderator and host for this event and introducing our first speaker, Vice Admiral Craig Clapperton, Commander Fleet Cyber Command, Commander 10th Fleet, Navy Space Command. I think the list keeps growing every time I see him. So we appreciate him being here. He's from Pittsburgh originally, went to Penn State, got a master's from the Naval War College, been to Nuke Power School, an aviator flying intruders, prowlers, and growlers. Too long a biography to read to you, but you get a sense of it and you can see it online. And rather than take up more time, I'm going to invite the Admiral up here to begin his remarks. Sir.
All right. Hey, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good stuff. All right, well, good morning, everybody. Always thrilled. Last year, they had me out here. I followed the Secretary of the Navy. This year, they have me following the CNO. So always great to be the follow-up to those two, so fantastic. So this is my second year out here at West and my third opportunity to speak at an FFC event, and really appreciate that. As I was joking earlier, either they like what I'm saying or they're hoping I'm going to figure it out, and if it's the latter, good luck, because that's probably not going to happen. I want to begin by saying thank you to General Lawrence, as well as to Admiral Spicer and certainly Admiral Daly for the continued support and the opportunity to be out here and speak with you all, and for hosting these amazing events. My team and I, and there are many of them here in the audience, really enjoy the opportunity to come out and interact with industry and interact with our folks across the Joint Force to make sure we're up to date on the latest and greatest, and share the insights and the great work that our team is doing. So to sort of set the scene, right? So as mentioned, I am the Commander of Naval Space, Fleet Cyber Command, Joint Force Headquarters, Navy, U.S. 10th Fleet, which is our only global number fleet, and then I'm also the Navy Cryptologic Officer. So this is an enterprise of over 19,000, almost 20,000 men and women, military and civilian, that are conducting operations around the globe 24/7. And just a snapshot of a few of the key things that my team has been working on and contributing to the Joint Force over the last year. So first, both my Task Force 1050 and 1060, as well as the Navy Integrated Firing Element, have been intimately involved in all that's going on in the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aden, and the 5th Fleet AOR. You heard the CNO, I hope, talk about some of the great work that many of our DDGs and other platforms have done out there, the self-defense and the protection of shipping through those lanes. Well, again, without 1050, without 1060, without KNIFE, the battle space awareness, the assured communications, and many of the targeting solutions that those assets were able to bring to bear don't happen without those men and women executing their jobs every day. Also, 1060, not just involved in what's going on with Israel-Hamas, what's going on in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, but absolutely integral to what Naval Forces Europe and the European Command is doing to support our NATO allies and their support more broadly to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Again, critical battle space awareness, critical assured communications, and vital information sharing to that conflict. Really important work. At the same time, Task Force 1040, which focuses on the 4th Fleet AOR and U.S. Southern Command. Again, battle space awareness, assured C2, helping Southcom make America the partner of choice in South America. One of the most maybe obvious and impactful areas there is what they provide and share with some of our interagency partners to the counter-drug process. They have multiple times over the last year contributed to vital intelligence that's led to takedowns of illicit drugs moving into the U.S. On the numbers of tens to hundreds of millions of dollars in fentanyl and other illicit drugs. So again, really vital information sharing and command and control solutions that we provide to the Joint Force. And then, of course, to our pacing challenge and what's going on in U.S. Indo-PACOM. We have significantly expanded our support across all of our warfighting capabilities that we provide to the Joint Force. we've exercised them, we've war-gamed them, we've red teamed them to what we're providing to U.S. Indo-PACOM. And that's our warfighting capabilities that we provide to the Joint Force: assured C2, battle space awareness, and integrated non-kinetic effects. To the point where we have now matured that integration of our non-kinetic effects so significantly with the Joint Force maneuver that there isn't a difference between what we do and what the traditional Joint Force and kinetic forces do. In fact, one can't succeed without the other. And there have been significant advancements and the resiliency, the redundancy, the security of our networks, building true zero-trust networks out there in Indo-PACOM, working closely with General Mark Miles, the J6 for U.S. Indo-PACOM, with our partners from the National Security Agency and across Cyber Command to build a truly zero-trust network out there that we're looking to expand and bring many partners into. Increasing the battle space awareness that we provide to that AOR, so not just with the Navy Integrated Firing Element, which works out of ADFC Colorado in very close partnership with NSA Colorado, but also now with what we call the Tactical Integrated Firing Elements and Notch, which is our naval over-the-horizon targeting capability that we've now incorporated into the PAC fleet and Indo-PACOM targeting solutions, helping to drive over-the-horizon targeting capabilities and eventually lead to no-kidding firing solutions and advancing those capabilities. So significant innovation there. And then some very significant innovation across the non-kinetic effects capabilities. So I have an organization called the Navy Cyber Warfare Development Group, NICWEDGE. We also call them Task Force 1090. And this team, a brilliant group of individuals, civilians, active duty, some of our most talented and innovative cyber warfare officers, which we call cyber warfare engineers. And these really skilled young men and women have advanced capabilities in electronic warfare, in counter space capabilities, in offensive and defensive cyber capabilities. And we have worked very closely with U.S. Indo-PACOM, U.S. PAC Fleet, U.S. Forces Korea, and others across the Indo-PACOM theater to integrate these non-kinetic effects, synchronize them in a way that we have never been able to before, and then properly synchronize them into the Joint Force maneuver so that we are providing greater battle space awareness, we are providing greater survivability, and significantly improved targeting and lethality to the integrated force. So those are just a few of the things that my team's been working on over the last year. And I want to talk to you about a few more of those as I go through my discussion today. So I've got about another 36 minutes. So my goal will be to talk to 34 of those so that it can't get any hard questions. So I'll talk for about another 15 minutes or so. And then I really do want to hear questions and thoughts from the group here. As I was telling, so I have Ms. Jen Edgen over here. She's my resource sponsor and the overall policy director for us. And so all the hard questions will go to Jen. Any of the technical questions I can't answer will go to my Commodore for Navy Net Warfare Command here right in the front, Commodore McGee. And I'll take all the easy ones. But what I want to talk about really is what you see here on the slide, and that's the three warfighting capabilities that across my 5 hats we provide to the Joint Force: assured C2, battle space awareness, and the integration of non-kinetic effects. Similar to what the CNO has, and I think fortunately for me, very aligned with what the CNO's priorities are, I execute these 3 warfighting capabilities and provide them to the Joint Force through 5 priorities. The first one is warfighting. So fantastic, I'm exactly aligned with my boss. That's her #1 priority. It has been my #1 priority since I've taken over Fleet Cyber and JFHQ Navy. My second priority is readiness. And I think that's exactly analogous and equivalent to the CNO's second priority of warfighters, because she's talking about the talent management, she's talking about making sure those warfighters are ready, and in our lens, readiness is the key driver there. And then the 3 remaining priorities, I think, amount to her third priority, which is foundation. And for me, that's integration, innovation, and partnerships. because we can't bring those foundation capabilities, those new capabilities, those partnerships with industry, partnerships with the interagency, partnerships across the joint force, if we are unable to integrate what we bring, whether it's for Assured C2, battle space awareness, or non-kinetic effects, and synchronize them with our interagency and joint partners. If we don't drive innovation, right, because our adversaries and those wish to do harm, that they don't stay still, they're constantly maneuvering and adapting and improving their capabilities, and so the innovation across the force is absolutely vital if we're going to succeed. And then finally, partnerships, right? So those are, as I said, partnerships with industry, which are absolutely vital. We work incredibly closely with our interagency partners as a cybercom component, perhaps most significantly with the National Security Agency, but they are by no means the only organization. Research and development agencies like the advanced research laboratories that we have in the military, DARPA and others are key players for us. And then we work across multiple foreign partners, to include certainly our Five Eye partners with whom we work most closely. So we work across those 5 priorities to deliver these warfighting capabilities. And so if I could, I just want to talk just a little bit more about some of the advancements that we've made in each of them, just spend a couple minutes on each of those, and then I'll be happy to open it up for questions. So in Assured C2, we've really made some significant efforts here. Last year when I was out here, I was talking to you about the capabilities that we've brought with our endpoint awareness, with our identity tools, and with some of our Microsoft Defender endpoint tools to our unclassified networks. And at that point, it was largely focused primarily on our enterprise unclassed networks. Well, over the last year, again, with help from many industry partners, we've expanded that dramatically so that it is now not just enterprise, but it's essentially all of our unclassified networks. That includes our overseas platforms, the EDU platforms, and we've dramatically reduced, and we are in the process of, no kidding, eliminating what we call accepted networks, which have been networks that have been able to operate outside our visibility of those endpoints and that identity, which then pose the greatest risk to adversarial access. So these tools are really important. They let us see not only the endpoints, we have also increased the censoring on the edges of our networks, that censoring giving us significant insight as to what malicious cyber actors might want to do and how they might want to maneuver into our networks. And then most importantly, the key piece of that is not just the awareness of the endpoint, not just the awareness of what an identity is doing and whether they're behaving as they should or not just awareness of what's going on our edge devices, but the ability to bring that amount of data back, put it into a significant and capable analytic, and then use human partnering with machine learning and AI to say, this is what the adversary is really doing. And we have significantly advanced our capabilities here to no kidding, now we're able to, instead of an operator having to, weed through millions and millions of pieces of data to try to identify commonalities in what's going on one part of the network and what's going on across another part of the network that might be, significantly spread across the world. The analytic is able to point to us and say, this is where you should be concerned. This over here, and this up here, they're all related activities. You should be aware of that. It looks malicious, there's a problem. That then enables us, so the machines are great at that. Sometimes the machines aren't as great at dissecting and getting down to the attribution of it and how you should solve the problem. So this is where the AI, the machine learning, and the human have to come together to maximize the benefit from that. Kelvin's team partnered with Captain Sharon Pinder at the Navy Cyber Defensive Operations Command and CDOC, have really turned that into a combination of art and science. And they have been able to respond much more quickly, much more effectively, and significantly securing our networks. And I would say, instead of just being reactive, because of our visibility of the endpoints and the identities, and the capability that we have with the analytic, and then blending the AI with the human being, we're able to be much more proactive, right? We're able to see TTPs, we're able to see adversary intent, and we're able to project forward proactively with intelligence-driven hunts and searches and hardening and make it much more difficult for our adversaries to penetrate our networks. I like to say that our team and what we have done on the unclass network has been extremely informative as to what the broader DoD and DISA enterprise are trying to do into the IL-5 and IL-6 and classified arenas. I think we have helped to shape, and I'll be as bold as to say, as I think we were driving some of that behavior moving forward. And I hope that we continue to be partnered in that. That's obviously a huge priority for us. I think you're going to see a great deal of progress on that in this coming year as we begin to bring those kinds of tools, identity, endpoint, edge awareness and censoring, and then advanced analytics to be able to drive that same kind of intelligence-driven hunt, hardening, secure, and countering malicious cyber activity to the classified arena. I would also say that, again, through really significant innovation out in the PAC Fleet AOR, Mr. Bob Stevenson and his team out of PAC Fleet are amazing partners in this area. And I see my team from Nick Tam's PAC here as well. Some amazing progress in partnering with industry to where we're now able to start to bring some of those capabilities to our afloat platforms. And we're doing some really interesting experimentation innovation here because that's a huge piece of this for the Navy, right? It's one thing to say, well, I've got the ashore unclassified piece covered. We have a very clear way forward for how we want to approach the classified ashore infrastructure. How are we going to push that out to the afloat infrastructure and the afloat networks? That's a unique problem for the Navy. There's bandwidth problems, there's technology problems, there's how you're going to move the data through the ship's network issues, and then also there's admission control and MCON, and when you don't want the ship communicating, how does that tie into it? And through some really exciting innovation out at PAC Fleet, we're beginning to solve a lot of those problems. Software-defined AD&S solutions, using expanded bandwidth capabilities brought to bear by Starlink and other companies, and then a thing called hyper-converged infrastructure, or HCI. Kelvin can explain that to you if you have questions about that. We are then able to really figure out new and exciting ways to move that massive amount of data through the bandwidth we have. And then again, to bring that insight back to an analytic so that we have visibility from a remote location to help instruct local defenders as to what they need to do, as well as take action remotely. Okay, into the battle space awareness approach, right? So what are we doing there? Again, significant innovation across my team. So last year I talked to you about what the Navy Integrated Firing Element does, and KNIFE, right, which is the only joint solution that's able to provide that kind of battle space awareness and directly lead to targeting solutions. It's an amazing capability, 24/7. KNIFE has now achieved its full operational capability, and they are contributing to battle space awareness and over-the-horizon targeting and firing solutions across the globe. As I mentioned, sometimes that's the 5th Fleet AOR. And then through day-to-day operational activities and investments in INDOPACOM, in EUCOM, and in SOUTHCOM, they are contributing to those events as well, day in and day out, and just doing some really remarkable work, increasing their capacity and their capability. But KNIFE alone isn't enough, right? Because you can't just have one thing, right? Because that could be taken away from you. You could go into a denied environment where that enterprise solution isn't there. So we've been moving to what we call TIFE, or Tactical Integrated Firing Elements. We've been figuring out new and exciting ways to share that information with afloat capabilities and expeditionary capabilities like Maritime Targeting Cell Afloat and Maritime Targeting Cell Expeditionary, which is the Marine Corps version of that. Again, to be able to provide the SIGINT that helps those maritime targeting cells in their multi-int approach to targeting and battle space awareness, and KNIFE and TIFE can do that. And in fact, during Keen Edge, we just demonstrated our own capability of this out in PAC Fleet that we call Notch, and it was an extremely successful demonstration. It's going to be incredibly informative to how we want to do this in Valiant Shield and moving forward from there. So again, really exciting work in that area. And then CNO mentioned Triton during her conversation. And again, Triton provides us, again, with an amazing capability, right? SIGINT, multi-int, geo-int. From my team, obviously, the SIGINT and the comment are the most important pieces of that. But to have that unmanned platform that can then stay on station longer, project into areas where potentially in a crisis or conflict scenario you may not want to send a manned platform, and then provide that exquisite SIGINT and comment capability back, and allow the PED and all the TAC reps to be done at a distributed group of NIOCs across the globe. So Triton not only, if a Triton is on an Indo-PACOM orbit, it doesn't just communicate with NIOC Pacific and Hawaii. They're communicating with Whidbey Island. They're communicating with Task Force 1060 in NIOC Maryland. They're communicating with Task Force 1050 NIOC Georgia. So around the globe, as these Tritons expand their orbits, they will be communicating with all of my NIOCs and bringing really a federated approach to that battle space awareness and how we can help the warfighter have better understanding of what's going on in their AOR. So again, some very exciting opportunities and innovation there. And then in non-kinetics. So again, understanding the classification, right? I can just sort of give you some overall concepts. But many of these concepts are really exciting, okay? So it's no longer about, wait, hey, we need to figure out this one specific cyber capability against a specific adversary. And with the stand-up of Navy Space officially this year in January, with my formal confirmation within the last few months here, and with some really innovative work that's going on at the Navy Cyber Warfare Development Group and with many other partners, we are looking at exciting and new ways to bring electronic warfare, space capabilities, cyber capabilities, and then working with organizations like FIWIC PAC out in PAC Fleet, as well as our SpaceCom partners. Again, under my Navy space hat, I work directly for General Whiting as a service component, and I work very closely with my SpaceCom other service components and the Joint Force Space Command out in Vandenberg, and saying, okay, how are we going to bring electronic warfare, space, cyber, emissions control, deception, and joint force maneuver, and layer those things into a very complicated and synchronized capability that provides our force with the greatest mobility, the greatest opportunity to be dynamic across a vast AOR, but then still provides them with exquisite opportunities to deliver lethal force if and when necessary. And there have been significant advancements in that. Those efforts are a key focus of any of the exercising and wargaming that we do. There's been significant work with many of our industry partners in how we model and sim that information, right? Because it's one thing to have all these exquisite capabilities. It's a whole nother thing to figure out, okay, how do I want to pair these things? What things do I want to put together? What things do I not want to put together? What order do I want to do them in? Right? And so that takes significant computing capability as to how we're going to do that, how we're going to model and sim that to determine the best ways to do that to defend our forces, to provide our forces with awareness, and then in times of crisis or conflict, enable our forces to have the greatest lethality. And again, really fantastic work and innovation there. And then finally, just to wrap it up, I want to highlight on my readiness piece, or as the CNO would say, our warfighters piece. Working very closely with Admiral Kelly Oshbach, Navy Information Warfare Commander, the IBOS, as well as BUPERS in Millington. We've been able to make some really important advancements in how we're approaching readiness and how we're approaching talent management. Now, talent management in the market for getting people that are really good at space and cyber, assured C2, battle space awareness. That's not just a Navy problem. It's not just a DoD problem, not just a government problem. That's all of us problem, right? There's only so many people that have the game to bring these kind of capabilities together and to know how to use these kind of capabilities the right way. But some important things that we've done within the Navy that I think are really helping us a lot. So first, we've advanced and we've had the first boards for our maritime space officers and our maritime space cadre, moving that effort forward. So getting people that are specifically going to be focusing on our Navy space capabilities, right? Creating experts in that arena, really, really important. We have created a new designator and a new rating for cyber warfare technicians on the enlisted side and maritime cyber warfare officers on the officer side. Again, this is going to enable both our enlisted and officer force to stay focused in cyber instead of going across the entire breadth of IW, right? Now there's obviously going to be some opportunity for those guys to get insights into the IP world or the cryptologic world or the intelligence world, and vice versa for all of them, as well as the unrestricted line officers. But it's going to drive and force both those officer and enlisted personnel to stay primarily in cyber and to stay on target and to create the expertise that we need to defend ourselves and, if necessary, be able to attack our adversaries in space and cyber. So those two, the MICWO and the CWT, really important capabilities that we've done to drive forward. And as a result of that, as well as other efforts and policy changes within BUPERS, I can tell you, again, without getting into the specific statistics, that we have dramatically increased our readiness over the last 12 months, and then even more so when you look at that over the last 24 months. Now, we're never content with where we are. We're never satisfied with where we are in those areas, and we still have work to do. But again, with the creation of Maritime Space Officer, Cyber Officer, with CWTs, policy changes within BUPERS, we have dramatically increased our readiness. And then the final piece of this is, I think this is good for the entire IW force, right? As we create specialists in space and cyber, that also then enables us to create specialists within the information professional world, right? So our IP officers, they specialize and they stay primarily in their area. Our cryptologic officers and our SIGINTers across the officer and enlisted force, they stay, again, primarily in their space. And they become expert warfighters and steely-eyed killers in their areas, right? And so that expertise across each of the individual silos of IW, I think, is really important. And look, we see this in the other across the URLs within the Navy as well, right? You know, we don't have aviators that do one tour in helicopters and then one tour in fighters and then one tour in P-8s, right? They focus on one area. Now, as airplanes come and go or they get phased out, they may transition, but they specialize in one area. The same thing is really true within the surface world, right? There are folks that grew up in the frigate and then eventually went to the LCS world. There are folks that grew up in the crew des world. There are folks that grew up in the amphib world. Sure, occasionally you see them hop from surface type to one to the other, but primarily they stay in those areas. And so I think it's entirely appropriate that within the IW force that we do exactly the same thing to create those kinds of specialists and those warfighters. So that's my story for you today. Again, I think it's a story of significant operational accomplishment across the globe in the face of numerous conflicts and challenges, and that those conflicts and challenges, you know, span across competition, crisis, and unfortunately, within the Gulf of Aden and the Fifth Fleet, really into conflict where things have gone kinetic. And the 20,000 men and women across my 5 hats executing these warfighting capabilities have done an exceptional job. They've continued to innovate. They've continued to improve. They've continued to partner with many of you in industry, and I look forward to seeing that continue to grow over the next year. Thanks again to West for the opportunity, and with that, I'm more than happy to take some of your questions. Yes, ma'am, in the back. I'm sorry, can we have her come up? There's a huge conversation going on behind me. Good morning.
What is the Navy currently doing to reduce dependence on space assets to achieve and maintain battle space awareness? So if China knocks out our space satellites, how do we maintain that continuity and redundancy?
Sure. So we're certainly aware that other adversaries, not just China, would want to attack our various communication methods, right? And so it's not just what if they were to try to attack space assets or if they were to try to attack terrestrial or other ground networks. The goal here is to be resilient and redundant. And so this involves, again, some of the innovation that I spoke about earlier, right? So find new and interesting and exciting ways to move huge amounts of data through our terrestrial and our traditional communications through software-defined ADNS solutions and HCI, and put larger bandwidth apertures on board our afloat platforms so that we can not just be able to move that data through one RF spectrum, but through various RF spectrums, so that okay, if there's an attack against a certain RF spectrum or type of satellite, that there is a fallback and a resilient method to defer to another bandwidth across the MI spectrum or into another area where we can move that communication. And so it's the innovation that we've been doing really across the field to look at diverse ways to send those communications and share information. Others? Yes, sir. Good to see you, Sinclair.
Sir. And this is a question I've asked before, not of you, but others, and you can tell me to shut up and sit down, old sailor.
I would never say that to you. Come on now.
But my question is, with all that you've talked about, and what Admiral Franchetti, CNO, has talked about, do you see a time when the information warfare officer goes from being restricted to a URL capable of commanding at the strike group level, because all of the systems are becoming more and more dependent on that? And I know I'm heresy to the surface warfare community. How dare you take away a command opportunity? But the domain has become that much important. So that's my question.
So it's a great question. In fact, I had the opportunity to go out and speak with some of our information professionals yesterday, and I got asked exactly that question. And so do I see a time when that might happen? I do. I think that's sometime in the future, however. I don't think that's right now. I think right now we have some work to do to develop the IW operational leadership piece before we get to that, right? And as you talked about in your question, it is expanding, it is building, it is becoming an absolutely vital piece to what we do. So talking about, and this will get me in trouble with Admiral Oshbach, right? But talking about it from Clapperton's point of view here, right? So I think we, the Navy, need to take our IWCs, our information warfare commanders that are screened and recognized warfare commanders on our strike groups. And I say this as a former strike group commander and as a former carrier CO that saw those IWCs in every way as an equivalent warfare commander to my carrier air wing commander, to my destroyer squadron commander, to my carrier CO, right? That IWC is every bit a warfare commander. What I think personally then we should be doing is giving them a defined staff, right? So again, and I've said this multiple times, and I haven't gotten in trouble for it yet, so I'll say it again. We would never ask a carrier air wing commander, hey, I know you need a staff of about 50 or so to be able to integrate your 8 squadrons, but I don't want to give you those 50 people, so just go to the 8 squadrons and ask for 5 to 10 people from each of them and build your staff out of that. We would never say the same thing to our destroyer squadron commanders. But that's because, again, of what I talked about, that talent management problem, that availability of people, recruiting and accessions and retention issues. That's what we ask our IWCs to do. So I think we need to create an IW squadron, or whatever you want to call it, right, that has no kidding people that are experts in intelligence and meteorology and cyber and space, cryptology, etc., that are a permanent staff that IWC actually commands, right? That then solidifies and builds and enhances the role of that IWC. I think we need to be very clear that an IWC is a major command. That's kind of still a bit of a fuzzy piece within the Navy, right? Clapperton's personal opinion, I think IWC should be very clearly a major command, right? And then once we get to those points, right, and we mature that role a little bit further and formalize that role a little bit further, underscore the culture that shows that we value that role, then I think the sky is the limit. But until we do that, I think we're going to be challenged. Other questions? Yes, sir. A cyber intensive?
Incentive paying structure?
So great question. And so his question was, now that we've gone from CTNs to CWTs, are we going to create a improved retention and cyber incentive structure, right? And so the answer to that is yes. And I've been working very closely with Admiral Oshbach and Admiral Waters at BUPERS. And what we're trying to do is taking all of the above approach, right? So what we had done in the past is CTNs and CWTs, very specifically it was, there's very small benefit or very little benefit throughout their first tour, and then there's a massive re-enlistment bonus, right? And that's okay, except for that other services have taken a more diversified approach. So the re-enlistment bonus may not have been as large as ours, but they were giving monthly and annual benefits to people that had those skill sets. More importantly, and this is a really important one, as people gained more significant qualifications and demonstrated greater technical capability, they were then rewarding those people with even greater incentive, right? And look, it's a what have you done lately for me world, especially if you're in your 20s, right? And so if you're a 23-year-old sailor and there's a 23-year-old airman and they're making more money than you for the exact same thing in the right here and now, it doesn't necessarily carry the same weight to say, yeah, but if you re-enlist in 3 years, you'll catch up to all that, right? I mean, maybe if you're in your 40s or 50s, you buy into that, but in your 20s, that's a difficult argument to make. And so what I've been working with Admiral Oshbach and Admiral Waters on is doing exactly that, right? How do we distribute those benefits across a CWT's time in the Navy? How do we make those benefits drive what I want and what we want, which is really greater technical expertise, greater warfighting capability? So in other words, okay, you've achieved the first tier of qualification, you get this much. But if you get to this point, I'll increase that monthly or annual special duty pay. If you get to this level, well then not only will I open up, not only will I provide more financial incentive, but potentially greater promotion incentives. And so one of the things, and this is still very much in the development phase, is expanding our cyber warfare warrant officer program. So we have a cyber warrant officer program for our operators, right, our interactive on-net operators. And Admiral Oshbach and I and the BUPERS team have been talking about how do we expand that to other technical areas within the CWT. So our hosted network analysts on the defensive side, our exploitation analysts, how do we provide opportunities for them to become cyber warrants? And the interesting piece there, right, is then not only do you give them greater opportunities for leadership, and more authority and to influence others around them and train others around them and be a role model, but you keep them on mission and on target, right? Because they don't they don't sort of promote out of the tactical operator target focused effort. And so those are all things we're looking at, because again, keeping people on keyboard, if you will, and on mission and on a specific adversary, really important to develop the kind of expertise that we need going forward. So yeah, great question, and we're working that. And I think in the next 12 months, you're going to see some of it. In the next 24 months, you're going to see more of it. Because those things are policy things, so they have to kind of work their way through. But I think in the next 12 to 24 months, you're going to see lots of that going on. So great question. Thank you. Got time for one or two more. Yes, sir, in the back.
Thinking of cyber operations, who would be a good person on your staff to talk to about talent management, warfighter readiness?
So a good person on my staff to talk about talent management and warfighter readiness. So the first person I'm going to defer you to is my deputy, Rear Admiral Steve Donald, National Treasure. If you don't know Steve, former operator. Got out, was in the reserves, has run a couple of his own companies, and now is a really an active duty reservist. He's been on the team since I've been there. Really an in-depth knowledge of the entire process, officer and enlisted. So Steve would be the first person that I'd have you talk to. The next person I'd have you talk to is my Master Chief, Fleet Master Chief Jay Walker. The Fleet Master Chief is really my overall manager, certainly on the enlisted side, for that expertise and that level of talent management. And then my Chief of Staff, Captain Christina Hicks, would be the other person that I'd refer you to. So thank you for that. Other questions?
Sir, is there anything you can talk about related to the spectrum management and EW operations and challenges and planned resolutions for those challenges related to the UCOM or INDOPACOM AORs? Over.
Okay, so this is one of those questions that really I'm probably going to refer and defer to Jen Edgen over here. So first off, so I spend a lot more time and a lot more focus of my effort on the INDOPACOM AOR because I am, in fact, the Regional Cyber Coordinating Authority for U.S. INDOPACOM. I am not for UCOM. Certainly, my Task Force 1060 does a lot of work over there, but they are not in the spectrum management business. They are more in the spectrum use and execution business. Even within the INDOPACOM AOR, the policy piece of that is really N2N6 and Miss Edgens, and so I don't want to get out over my skis or start trying to talk for my boss there. What I will tell you is that discussion is robust and ongoing. And there are definite challenges there, right? So what spectrums can we in fact use for the military? What spectrums can we use to communicate with our Five Eye partners? And then as I talked about earlier, and as the lady's question earlier about, hey, what do you do when an adversary takes away one spectrum or another? We need to have fallback, resilient, redundant spectrums that we can go to. But obviously, commercial providers and industry are expanding into those same spectrums. And while the RF spectrum is a really big place, it's a really busy place, and you got to find the right areas in there. So I think really for this classification level, and because my boss is sitting over here, I'm going to leave it at that for that answer, which probably isn't especially satisfying, but I think I'm just going to have to leave it there, sir. So thank you very much. All right, probably time for one more. Okay, if not, all right. Again, thank you all very much for your attention this morning. Thanks for your time. I hope you found some small insights into what's going on across Fleet Cyber, Navy Space, Joint Force Headquarters Cyber, 10th Fleet. Interesting. Certainly the innovation and the efforts that we've accomplished here over the 18 months that I've been here, we could not have done without our partnership with all of you. As I indicated today, there are many of them going on across all of the warfighting capabilities that we deliver. I've got about another 18 and a half months in the job unless CNO decides otherwise. And so I look forward to continuing to build and move the ball forward in each of these areas as much or more so over those 18 months than I have in the first 18. And I'm incredibly appreciative of the partnership that we have with each of you. So again, thank you all very much. And we'll see you around West this week. Thank you.